are again, Mark. Not many more of these to go.
No, although we try and keep them going through the summer as normal, so we just try and keep that consistency. But yeah, they tend to drop off, miss one or two during the summer, but not many to go till the end of the season. Could have planned it a bit better. We could have planned it after last Tuesday's win, but unfortunately the football gods don't work out like that.
You cannot foresee these things, can you? You can't. Which leads us probably nicely into the first question. The main theme, people underwhelmed by January transfer window. Now, I know you have answered this before, but worth going over again. Some say needed a centre mid and didn't get one. Some others say had the chance to mount playoff challenge and lacked ambition. So, transfer activity in January in your eyes?
Well, we did bring 4 players in, and what we've tried to do consistently with the players that we're bringing in, especially the younger ones, is apart from one player we've currently got on loan, there is options to either extend the loan possibly for another year or to make them our own during the summer. There's one exception to that, but the others, there's either a verbal or a written agreement that we can convert the loans into a permanent signing. In regards of the centre midfielder, unfortunately in January there's no such thing as, well, there's the very few free agents. They're actually signed up to other clubs, and it's not just a case of you doing a deal with the agent and the player, you're having to do a deal with the agent, the player and the other club. And in this instance, as the days run out to the end of the transfer window, our model of an experienced box-to-box, tough tackling, central midfielder, just didn't, we couldn't get him out of the other clubs. It wasn't through lack of trying on our part. It was literally that the other clubs were saying, look, we're going to let X player go, but we have to bring in Y player before that we allow that to happen. Unfortunately, it became clear that the last day or two that wasn't going to happen, and then Stephen Henderson, experienced goalkeeper, was around. He'd been keen to come for a long while. Kenny took the decision that rather bring potentially another youngster in that position that might stifle our own, that he would go down the route and bring in an experienced goalkeeper. But unfortunately, as we know, he suffered an injury.
You always hear fans saying, why didn't you go for him? Why didn't you go for so-and-so? It's not like going in a sweet shop, is it? It's
not like going in a sweet shop. And even on a loan, there's the player to convince to come. There's the agent that you've got to convince. And in some cases now, they start wanting loan fees payable to the agents. It is a complex negotiations. It's not as simple as you say as going into a sweet shop. However, I perfectly take on board and accept the fact that, there was a need for a central midfielder. Kenny was desperately trying to get a central midfielder in, and unfortunately we just couldn't close the deals because it was out of our control. It was in the hands of other clubs, and that had nothing to do with the budget, it had nothing to do with a lack of ambition. It purely and simply was the fact that that these players were contracted to other clubs. The ones that we wanted, that we felt would improve the squad, we just couldn't get out, and it was out of our hands.
And it should be stressed that when people suffer disappointments like Saturday, we suffer with them.
Cool. You know what it's like. It's until the next game, we're suffering. I'm suffering, you're suffering, our board is suffering, Kenny's suffering, the players suffer. We feel it as much as any fans. And I know after a game, we talked earlier about the anger after games now, and it's a bit like going out for a night at a theatre or whatever. I'm not really a theatre goer, but if you go out for a night at a theatre or you go and watch a film and there's disappointment, people tend to go on social media now and vent their anger. I mean, there's no other way of saying that. And then it gradually starts to recede as the days and the weeks go on, and then the expectation rises to the next game. But there's no legislating. Saturday we had arguably 7 nailed on starters, either that were out via injury or suspension. And it's pretty much, the bulk of your team, and there's just no rhyme or reason for that. We've analysed, just want to assure fans, we've analysed each and every injury, and is it Fratton Park, is it the training ground, is it the training regime, is it, a whole variety, but there's no consistency in the injuries. So in the case of Danny Rose and Cal Naismith, who was out for a long time, these were knocks, broken leg and impact injuries. Gareth Evans and Brett Pittman suffered their injuries away from home. So again, no blame on our pitch. You know, we've had a combination of injuries at home and some have been on the training pitch. So there's no consistency, and you're always looking for that consistency of where are we going wrong, where can we improve? But it's just unfortunate that we have got this multitude of injuries mounting up, and just at times when you think that they're coming back and we're starting to strengthen, unfortunately we seem to go down with another 3 or 4 again.
And just before we leave that, I suppose if you're going to have injuries, and clubs do, it's a good time to have it when you're really in a position where we are.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the season as a whole, and you can't hide from the fact that January and February's been disappointing results-wise. I'm sure Kenny would say that, every fan would say that, and I definitely would say it's not been a great January, February. The results are there, that's a fact, yeah. But overall, we are still just 4 points off of the playoffs. Again, back to the question there about did it show a lack of ambition? I personally don't think it did. Throwing more money at it, you know, has never, ever guaranteed success. It assists, it gives you a greater chance, obviously. But I'm back to what I'm saying again. Even if we'd have got this central midfielder in, you know, the experienced, you know, holding box to box, central midfielder, you know, tough tackling, all that, you know, we're still left with a situation where a huge chunk of our squad are out injured.
OK, Callum on Twitter. While I think every fan fully understands this season's aim was to consolidate, well, perhaps not every fan, will next season be a promotion push or another year that we aim to build the club up from the bottom, i.e. youth players?
Listen, this year was all about consolidation, but that's not saying that we didn't want a promotion push. And that's not saying we still won't have a promotion push, by the way. You do not go into a season and accept mid-table. Yeah, you go into a season, you have your own internal goals and ambitions, but we're Portsmouth Football Club, and whatever league we're in, we're going to want to aspire to be at the highest level we can. So I see this out there that we didn't want to go up this year. It's absolute rubbish. You know that, Johnny. You're downstairs. I'm very open in the office, you know, with things that we discuss. Yeah. What we wasn't prepared to do this year, and won't be for future years, is to throw crazy money on the pitch in an attempt to get promotion. Everything that we're doing in regards of, you know, signing up Matt Clark on a new long-term contract, signing up Jamal Lowe on a new long-term deal, signing up Christian Burgess on a long-term deal. All these players that we're trying to protect as assets of the club that we can build through to the future. Everything's done with a long-term view in mind, and you know, a bad month, a bad couple of months, or a bad half a season is not going to sway us from where we ultimately want to be. And that is definitely in the future. We want a promotion at this football club.
Yep. Multiple fans, can you explain why we turned down money for Carl Bennett in the summer and then let him leave on a free in January?
To my knowledge, I mean, unless an official offer was made to someone else, we never had any financial offers for Carl Bennett in the summer, so I don't know where that one's come from.
Okay. Update on season ticket prices. Will they go up?
Sorry, I just want to go back on that before we go on, and it might be in the questions later on. But when we talk about ambition as well, there's a lot I see on social media is that I have to get the message across that the escrow money, the £3 million or 2.7 million we was left with after costs at the very, very start of when we come out of administration, that had kept Fratton Park open during the previous 4 seasons, ran out in the summer. Now, that was always budgeted to run out in the summer. What wasn't budgeted for was the extra spend, as I always predicted would be, when people started pulling, and I use the analogy of pulling wallpaper off of the walls, what they would find underneath. Yeah, that resulted in £350,000 just this summer gone of excess work. Now, as a result of that, there's been ongoing works for considerable hundreds of thousands since the summer that thankfully has got our capacity up. There's also projects going on currently behind the scenes that I can't currently disclose that people are going to see in the summer, again, where significant hundreds of thousands of pounds have been spent. Then there's our programmes of works that was already pre-agreed and going to be finalised for the summer, and that's going to be ongoing now for the next 3 or 4 years. So just I get very defensive when I see some of the comments on there about lack of ambition and lack of investment, because I can assure you over £1 million has already been invested that wasn't budgeted for this season. Okay, so £1 million plus already, and this is just the very start of what will be ramped up over the coming years. Yeah. So it's important when you're talking about ambition, if you wanted to suddenly say, I'll tell you what, let's not put that £1 million into these ongoing projects that are going to be great for the fans, I can assure you, in the summer when they start to see them. Yeah, let's put that money on the pitch. Then what happens? Yeah, let's just say we had got promoted this year. As I've consistently said, you then get into the Championship, and not only would we still have a lot of them work still needed to be done, you're then looking at losses of £10 to £20 million average in the Championship that's got to be funded. So then you get into this boom and bust cycle again, and that's not the way we're going to go. And if Michael did go, or our board did go that route, then he would have lied to the fans during the takeover process, because he was absolutely clear. If you want someone that is going to throw money on the pitch, willy-nilly, in frugal attempts to try and get promoted, I'm not your man, go and get someone else. Yeah. And the fans voted for that concept. So that it's important we stay on the same page. And as I say, everything we're doing is with a long-term vision and strategy in mind. And Michael, we've got a competitive budget this year, a competitive playing budget. I've said all along, it's not one of the top ones, and I know what the top ones are, and they're crazy. I mean, they're borderline Championship budgets, a few of the teams have got. We're not going to go down that route. No. Okay, that was made clear from the start. And look at the losses them clubs are making. So I'm not going to name them, but they're all out there for everyone to see. Yeah, there are an exception. There is an exception, a good exception. But on the whole, if you want to throw money at getting in the Championship, you stand to lose a lot of money. And they're clubs that have got great infrastructure. We haven't. So the infrastructure and building on the foundations that were laid during the previous 4 seasons under fan ownership, we're not going to ruin that legacy. We're going to build on them foundations.
Mm-hmm. And as we brought up with Eric Eisner last week, don't assume because you don't see it that it's not happening.
There's a lot of things being done at the moment, and I can assure you, when I sit here in July and August, one of the questions is, please revert back to this interview and say, you said a lot of things were happening over the summer or in the lead up and then during the summer, what exactly did happen? Hold me accountable. Because hold me accountable, genuinely, because you will see over the summer some great things happening at this football club. Okay. I've oversold it now, haven't I? But no, it is. We've, as I said, the previous 4 years done an amazing job. Laid the foundations. You will start to see in the summer the fruit of all that work and the growth on them foundations. Good, because it was well worth the interruption. Update on season ticket prices from a few fans. Will they go up? When will they be announced, etc.? Obviously, dependent on what league we're in. If we do get promoted, I'm sure that there might be an uplift into the Championship. But no, seriously, if we remain in this league, it's currently under discussion, but I think we're leaning towards a price freeze. So again, don't want anyone to hold me on that. I'm just giving you where I think we are at this moment. Now, it's not saying that's not going to change, but the general thinking and the discussions that we've had with the board is around a price freeze, and then looking at because I think it's with inflation being relatively low at the moment. To start adding 40, 50p's on tickets to take into account inflation, because we do want to get into that cycle where we're broadly in line with inflation. Yeah. But it just is crazy. It's a lot of administration work. So I think we're looking at doing increases every other year, and I think that's sensible. And at least if we can lay that out with the fans, I think at least they know that there's 1 year it's going to be a freeze, the next year that it's going to go up broadly in line with inflation. But as I say, don't hold me to that. Things change, but that's the general thinking. We won't make you accountable for that one yet. Bradley on Twitter, please can the club announce pre-season plans as soon as possible to give fans a chance to plan things also? It's difficult because we've not even booked ourselves yet. We're still trying to finalise details. We did look seriously at America. I have to be honest with that one. We did look, but it was just coming out at ridiculous prices that we're just not in that position. It would have been very wasteful, let's say, to spend the money that was being asked for on a pre-season tour. So we're looking for something closer to home. Ireland's on the agenda. Again, nothing's been confirmed at the moment, but that's at the moment where we're focusing. Pre-season tours, very popular amongst people. They are, but when it comes to it, you very rarely get more than a a few hundred go at the absolute maximum. So if you put a game on, it's popular, but to a few hundred people. But that's not to say, it's a great time for fans to engage in a pre-season relaxed environment with our players. It's something we're encouraged, and we're encouraging them to do, our players generally. And but as I say, nothing's been finalised. As soon as we do get it finalised, we will announce it.
Okay. Matt on Instagram, how did the club vote on the transfer deadline day decision? Because the transfer deadline's actually changed.
Yeah, we voted against it, actually. And not because we're against it in principle, moving the date of the transfers to the first game of the season. Just the fact it was a little bit it's complicated enough, but now we've got a situation where the transfer for permanent signings is closing, but the loan market's still open and you can still do a loan with a view to buy. So that was our rationale. And secondly, it was just as well that the Premiership, they've made it quite clear that this is going to be a trial season. They're not tied into it really for the long term. So you could end up getting fans used to a new transfer window and then switch it back a year later, where we're just following the Premiership. So there was just 2 or 3 little things niggling away, that it wasn't decisive. It wasn't, we think this is right, we are going to stick to it come what may. So it was a little bit wishy-washy, so we voted against it on that basis. And again, as I say, not because we're against the principle of moving it to that, but if you're going to do it and stick to it because you believe it's right. Not because of what other people are doing or other clubs, and then try and get into a bit of a mishmash of loans and loans to permanent signings. I just think it becomes very complicated for fans generally. Will
it change things for you dramatically?
Not really. I don't think it will. So again, then you have to ask the question, why do it? And, it's... So end of August, nice and clean, bosh, that's the date. If you're going to bring it forward to maybe the Friday before the first game of the season, again, do it. Do one or the other, but just got into this little bit of a hodgepodge scenario that that was the reason why I voted against it.
Okay, Michael on Twitter, a bit of a mouthful here. Any reason why residence permits, IDs, aren't accepted as forms of ID at the club? Government issued to prove you can stay and work here, accepted in bars, clubs, yet a friend in his 30s was denied a drink. If it's good enough to employ and widely accepted elsewhere, why not here?
I wish I was 30 and getting turned down to serving drinks. Johnny, I honestly don't have the answer to that one offhand. As our support liaison officer, if you could look into that for me. Yeah, if you could look into that, I'll be very grateful.
Right. Steve on Facebook, are there any plans now or for next season to better utilise the screens, scoreboard, or even replace them? The large screens seem just to be used for advertising, and the scoreboard is pretty useless. In brackets, very basic.
As I said to you, in a previous question, there's going to be a lot of investment, substantial investment being made over the coming months that fans will see the benefits of in the summer. A screen is very much part of that thinking and process. Nothing has been finalised at the minute, but it's something that is being looked at.
Okay, and a light-hearted one, I suppose, to end. Steve on Twitter, is there any chance of bringing back the dizzy stick penalty or a crossbar challenge at half-time, where a fan or two can get a chance of winning some Pompey merchandise? I always loved the spectacle as it brightened up a pretty drab 15 minutes awaiting the second half.
Funny enough, I don't know if people are aware, but I always stay out at half-time. I never come down. I always stay out. And I did raise it a few weeks ago why we'd stop the dizzy stick. And I was actually told that at one of the fan surveys at the back end of last year, a lot of fans didn't like it, and there was so much going on, and they said that the dizzy, there was people wanted to hear the other half-time scores, they wanted to hear the announcements, they wanted the lottery, they wanted the Domino pizza, choose the row gets the free pizzas and that, and they were a little bit non-fussed. But I must admit, personally, I really liked the dizzy stick. I found it funny, and maybe it's something that we look at bringing back if that's what fans want. Maybe it's something that I can get Sean in marketing to maybe run an online poll even, and just have a look at it and see if he thinks it's something worth us getting back on for the end of the season.
Often what one fan wants, another doesn't.
Yeah, as you know, Johnny, we get emails on a Monday morning, and they're polar opposites. Every day actually. Some people say that everyone he speaks to wants this, and then someone will say everyone he speaks to wants this. So it's just a case of how do you marry that up? It's one man's meat is another man's poison, and that is very much what it is in opinion. Someone say that their opinions have got more weight than others. And but you know, we do try and engage with various surveys and engagement with fans, and especially supporter clubs meetings, the Tony Goodall fans conference and that. So it's good to get them feedback and then make a final choice.
Can I say you don't look like a stereotypical granddad?
Thank you.
Go on, explain that for anybody that doesn't know.
No, listen, this is about the Q&A and the fans, but yeah, I did become a granddad in the week. My daughter Abby had a little boy, Luca.
Doing well.
Doing well, mother and baby doing fine. Back home, you know, all settled, and yeah, really looking forward to that next stage of our life. So thanks for asking.
Congratulations, and thanks for your honesty again.
All right, thank you, Johnny.